William Shakespeare lived from 1564 to 1616. During his life, he spent many years in London, so today we would like to talk about the city's life during the 16th century. At the time, a mass migration to London was caused by Henry VII's actions. In 1485, in fact, he started centralizing the power in London, making other cities not appealing to the ambitious. Also, the trading benefits of its port and river made it an important economic center. Moreover, the land in the Elizabethan era was not used anymore for agriculture, but more for keeping sheep as livestock for their wool. The combination of these events made the population grow from 60,000 to 350,000 citizens in 100 years, which meant that by the end of the 16th century, London was the largest northern European city.
London was a tough city to live in. It was noisy, smelly, dirty and full of rubbish, of course. The city's streets were narrow and dark. Homeless people and criminals could be seen wandering in the crowd. Purse cutters were the most common type of criminals. They used to approach their victims and cut the little bags in which they kept their money. The streets were also full of sellers, who sold every kind of things. They used to shout to attract customers' attention. Land was expensive, so people built upwards. The top floors jutted outward over the street to have more space. Shops were on the ground floor and houses above them. In London there was the Staple Inn, where wool was weighted and taxed. Guilds controlled trade using standard weights.
One of the most important parts of the city was the River Thames. Not only was it crossed by merchants, which considered it to be the main trading route of England, but also by citizens, who were carried from one bank to the other by the so-called watermen. London Bridge was the only bridge across the Thames, and it was the setting of gory sights, such as traitors' heads hanging from poles. The North Bank, which was the oldest and only part of the city surrounded by medieval walls, was where most people still used to live, but the South Bank was becoming a major entertainment center.
Londoners were attracted to cruel blood sports. They used to organize fights between animals, such as cockfighting in proper pits. Fights between dogs and bears were also popular, and were hosted in baiting houses such as bear gardens. People used to treat bears cruelly. The bears were toothless and tied to a stake while trying to survive the attack of a pack of bulldogs, which, by the way, are the national dog of the United Kingdom. Londoners really liked public executions, which were considered a form of entertainment.
There were many gambling centers around the city, where people used to play dice and board games. However, it was common to be swindled. Sports were also popular. People used to play bowls, cricket, football, golf and real tennis, which was played indoors and made use of the walls to make the ball bounce. Pretty common at the time were jousts, which consisted in two horsemen riding in opposite directions, but still facing each other. The purpose of a joust was hitting the opponent with a lance and trying to make him fall off the horse.
Plays were a form of entertainment for all social classes. The richest and noble people sat in the gentlemen's rooms next to the stage, while the peasants stood in the yard. There were three main playhouses in London: the Swan, the Rose and the Globe. They were built by businessmen. The first one to be built was the theatre in 1576. Kids of wealthy families went to school. From the age of 4 to 6, boys and girls went to petty school, where they were taught good behavior and how to read. After that, boys could attend the grammar school, where they learned Latin, which was still necessary for university and to pursue a political, medical, clerical or teaching career. Feathers and ink were used to write, and there were no desks, which meant that either you could sit on a bench or you had to work on your knees. Also, print shops started a mass production of books, which led to education and literature being easier to access.
The very low level of hygiene was one of the main causes of disease spreading. The plague was still around in Shakespeare's times, and since it was not known how it spread, nobles blamed the poor. People fled from London in 1592. Playhouses were closed until 1594, but that didn't stop the plague from claiming thousands of victims. To protect themselves, people used to carry around pomanders containing medicinal herbs. The court was a cultural center where many plays and dances were performed. The queen was surrounded by a huge number of servants and courtiers who followed her everywhere. They usually moved quite often from one place to another, because they used to produce an insane amount of rubbish, which they were not able to get rid of. At that time, John Harrington invented the toilet, but still it wasn't enough.
If you have arrived at this point of the video, we would like to thank you for your attention. Now, I'd like to talk about some not so fun facts about the Elizabethan era. England was small at that time, so people quickly started to run out of places where to bury people. They would dig up coffins and reuse the grave. When reopening the coffins, it could happen that they found scratches on the inside. That meant that some people were buried alive. To prevent this from happening, they started to insert bell in the graves, so people who would have found themselves buried by mistake could ring it and be saved. Haven't you ever asked yourself why people married in June in the Elizabethan era? Well, recap your ears. One of the main reasons was that they only bathed once a year. Yes, you don't have a hearing problem. They only bathed once a year, and it happened in May. They thought that they would have still smelled nicely and would still have been fresh a month later.